What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 59 of the Reezy Talks live YouTube show that I do every Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern, and also available on my podcast on any type of device that you listen to podcasts on. Today, we are blessed to have Matt Osborn on the show. How's it going, Matt?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing great.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, if you guys don't know, today is my birthday. No rest for the wicked. Actually, I did take an hour nap, and I'm extremely tired, if you could see behind these shades. So thank the Lord for shades. And yeah, I published a book today. I don't know if you guys know about that or not, but it's my first book, my first information product. It's actually the first link in the description down there below. Anybody that buys it today on my birthday also gets a 15-minute consultation. So if you want to wish me a happy birthday, that's a good way to do it. So without further ado, let's get into this video. Let me give you a short introduction to Matt. Matt started something called the 100 Book Challenge, and he has a website that's the100bookchallenge.com, 100 the number. That link is also down below. And Matt works with Caleb Roth, the book flipper. Are you part owner?
I do. I own a smaller part of the company than he does, but I am a part owner in the company.
Cool. So Matt is co-owner of ScoutIQ and eFlip. And so other than being a beginning bookseller, how long have you been selling books for, Matt?
So I started listing books very randomly when I first met Caleb a little over 2 years ago, I think it was now, but not really consistently until I started this 100 book challenge.
So for how long has the 100 book challenge been going on?
The 100 book challenge just stopped last Wednesday, and so that was the end of the 13 weeks. So it started 13 weeks before last week, so about 14 weeks ago now.
Okay, great.
First day it started for me, at least. But Caleb actually started doing 100 books a week was his very initial goal when he started selling books on Amazon like 3 years ago. He wrote a blog post about it when he first, I think it was one of his very first blog posts actually. And it became one of his most popular blog posts because people just liked having a challenge and a physical number. And so
right
down the road, saw that post. I was like, let's restart that. Let's try that again and see how it works today.
Nice. So other than the 100 book challenge, Matt's main duties at ScoutIQ and eFlip, at least that I know of, I could be wrong, are marketing, right, Matt?
Yep, marketing is my main role there.
Awesome. That's great. So, and Matt has actually helped me set up my email list using drip.com. So if you got an email today from me about the book that I published, thank Matt for helping me do that. That sounds kind of funny. Like, hey, if I'm bugging you, it's all Matt's fault. So, anyways, a lot of that marketing stuff is kind of, it's foreign to me. Like, I know how to get people's attention with social media and how to create content and blah, 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 but I never had a product to sell. And I just was kind of scared of the email list. So Matt helped me get into that. And I'm sure he's going to teach us a bunch of stuff. At least we're going to gloss the surface over that. So why don't you tell everybody what the 100 book challenge is, Matt?
Yeah, so let me actually share my screen real quickly. I don't have like a whole presentation or anything, so don't worry.
No, that's good. We run a bare bones ship around here.
So the main two reasons why I wanted to do the 100 book challenge again, once some reasons kind of for myself and some of them for the people following along with the challenge as well, was to first define a target. So if you don't have a target, if you don't have a goal of what you're trying to get every single week, you're not going to be very consistent with it. It's not going to be easy to hit that. But if you actually set a goal, a physical number of books you want to bring home every single week, or products you want to source, it doesn't necessarily have to be books. It's going to be a lot easier for you to hit that. And then also is to stay consistent. It's like the biggest thing that Caleb and I, looking at the audience, kind of saw was that people would fall off because they would list 20 books here, wait a few weeks, list maybe 100 books here, stop. They don't see the money pouring into their bank accounts. They kind of feel like, oh, this doesn't really work. I'm going to try something else. because I'm not
Right.
listing books consistently. And as you know, Reezy, it builds up over time. And what you list one week, you might see the results of next month. So you have to stay consistent. So by setting a goal and then setting a day as a deadline, 90 days, it's easier to stay consistent and actually see that progress, build up the momentum and stuff. So that was the main goal with starting the 100 book challenge and having people kind of follow along with the journey.
So, have you been successful every week?
Yeah, so let me show you some of my numbers from it. Won't get way in detail on the numbers, but I'll show you kind of the main metrics you'd want to see. So one of the things I started out doing with the 100 book challenge is I started tracking my scans. And this kind of sounds weird, but to me, I figured out early on I can't decide how many profitable books I take home from a single source, but I can choose how many books that I scan in a single day. And so by tracking scans, I can kind of judge week by week how much effort I put in, how many books I scan, and then kind of see what my accept rate and stuff is from there. So during the whole challenge, I scanned a total of 56,000 books or somewhere just about that, which ended up being about 4,300 books a week. Now, when I first started, my first couple weeks were not going that well. First week, I did something like 7,000 books I scanned and barely hit the target. The next week, I did more. I think it was close to 9,000, somewhere high at 8,000 books, because I was going to the wrong sources. I didn't track everything well at the beginning, and so my accept rate was low, and I was scanning a ton of books, just everything they had. I didn't have much of a system to go about kind of finding the best books at a single source. So
Hold on. Do you feel that as time went on, your eyes and your hands became more trained at what books to scan versus just trying to scan every single thing?
yeah, definitely. So the biggest things I think I did wrong those first 2 weeks specifically, because thankfully I learned fast this is not going to be sustainable. Because another one of my goals that I didn't mention before is that I wanted to do this part time because I knew most of our users are part time, and so I didn't want to be spending all day doing this and then set an unrealistic goal for people that are just starting out. So I wanted to devote part time hours to this, do it after I finished my normal work. So the first 2 weeks, I think I was out 7 days, and I spent by all 7 days I was out maybe 2 hours every single night. I was sourcing, and I did not like spending that much time. I was a little worried for the rest of the challenge. But first of all, I started tracking everywhere I went. And I started tracking how many scans and how many books I took from that source. It doesn't take very long, especially if you're using ScoutIQ. You have the screen that shows you. So I wrote that all down because I wanted to know if I'm going to this one source every single week and I never take very many books, I'm scanning a ton of books. But this other source, I know when they're putting their books out and I'm getting a ton from there. I'm going to start rearranging my schedule around when people are putting books out, which sources are better, and figuring out how to kind of group those together to make the most of my time. So that helped, first of all, getting more books. And then the biggest thing that helped me was realizing that bookstores and libraries and stuff like that, they put stickers in their books to know when to take off old books and when to put on new books. I'm sure most people have seen these, but it kind of surprised me how many people don't realize or don't even pay attention to those. They'll go at a place, they'll scan all the books because they think that's the best way to do it. Then they'll go back the next week and do the same thing, not realizing they're scanning probably 3/4 of the same books they scanned the week before. So I ran a little experiment on my third week. I decided to go into a bookstore everywhere I went, and I only scanned the most recent books they put out. So I skipped over a lot of books, which might seem a lot of profit, and you might be, but I figured out by scanning just the most recent books, my accept rate was more than double what it was the week before. And my scans I did was half of what it was the week before. So it took half the time and I got double the books I did the week before. So I started doing that for the rest of the challenge, and my accept rate went through the roof, and the amount of scans I did per week went way down. And then again, on top of tracking and stuff, that's what really made the difference for me.
Nice. Thank you for the good explanation. Right now, my signal just actually dropped completely,
Yeah, I saw that.
and I had to log back into YouTube. And surprisingly, you were still talking, and everything was good. So, thank you for being a good co-host. Yeah, what you
I
were
can
talking
ramble.
about makes a lot of sense, and that's what I tell people. Is that like if you just go to a thrift store or whatever place it is one time, you can't really judge it as far as how good the source is. And
Mhm.
people say, well, how often should I go? And I say, well, it varies for each location. But if you don't know, I would say go every single day and maybe even twice a day, maybe times a day. It depends, because they could just have no good books, or someone could be getting there right before you. But you just never know, right? And so,
Yeah.
and then once you go through all the books, then you got to go through them again. So it was like it's super beneficial to show up at the store when they are putting the books out, so that you actually know which ones they're putting out, and you can help them put them out and develop a relationship. And then soon enough, maybe they're just holding the books to be put out until you show up, and then you help them put them out, and you get to go through the new books. There's a couple ways that I teach people to keep up with the books in a sourcing location, and the best one is to, when you're done going through all the books, like say it's your first time being there, you go through everything. Then when you leave, you consolidate all the empty space into one shelf. So if there's like 2 books of space here or 3 books of space, you make it so it's all in one shelf, and like waist level height. And one of my followers, Rob, he said he calls that reesing the shelf. So what happens
That's
is
really
when you
funny.
leave and there's a huge open space on one shelf, where do you think they're going to put the books at tomorrow? They're going to put them right there, because they just want to get it done and get back to work, put the books out, right? Then when you show up, you know where the new books are. They're on that shelf that you designated, and that you can go through them. Now, there's a couple more stealthy 007 ways you can do it. I've had a UV marker and a UV keychain light, and I've just drawn a line down all the book spine in the entire place, the ones that I've scanned, and then you can just check with your light to see if you've scanned them before or not. It's a little risky. You don't want them to see you doing it, but man, you save a lot of time if you don't have to go through all of the old stuff.
That's so funny. I kind of had that idea, but I was like, no, I don't think that'll work.
Yeah, no, I actually, before I came up with the blacklight one, I just use a grease crayon, because they're already marking the books anyways. So I just did another little mark on the edge of them. One thrift store that I go to, they don't use colored stickers. They put the books, when they have the books ready to go on the rack, they draw on the spine with a certain color grease crayon, and then different ones for each week or whatever. So they know all the books that have a red marking are from last week, and yellow is this week, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. You made a good point there. You talked about building the relationships with employees. I see a lot of other scouters that were out there, and for some reason, kind of like we were talking about at the Turn the Page book conference a couple weeks ago, they kind of stay to themselves. They hide their scanners. They pretend they're not there scanning books, and they try to avoid talking to anyone. But I figured out real fast, talking to the employees are normally very open about talking about it. They already know scanners are there. They probably know what you're doing already. And building a relationship with them is like one of the best things you can do, because they'll tell you when they put new books out. They might even let you scan them before they put them out. There's so many beneficial things you can do by actually just being open, talking to the employees, and figuring that out. That was one of the best ways I figured out when places were stocking, because I went and talked to the employees instead of kind of hiding and pretending I was there all stealthily not doing anything.
Exactly, right? Or maybe bring them some donuts, or give them some Starbucks gift cards. It's very easy to make them like you in secondhand shops, because a lot of people, like you said, they keep to themselves. They treat the employees bad. They're not very well paid, at least at most thrift stores. So it's very easy to just like make a connection, and become make a network with them or whatever. So just little things like, don't make a mess, you know what I mean? Leave the store cleaner than it was before you got there, you know?
Yeah.
The workers really appreciate that. Even simple things like smiling, like, hey, hi, I'm not an evil guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it goes a long ways. And yeah, the most successful, there's 1 or 2 spots that were my most successful ones I went to every single week, because I made the best relationships there. I knew the exact hour the person was there putting books out, and they knew when I was going to come and sell
Right.
20, 25 books from the same source every single week. And I could go back and count on those books, which was amazing.
I think it's safe to say that retail arbitrage used books business is a relationship business. It's a network business. It's all about, like, let's face it, it's not hard to sell books, right? It's not It's not like you're timing the market. It's like you could give a crap. Everything is so cheap and you're selling it for so much more than you bought it for. It's like you could throw it away if you make a bad decision and not even care. It's in my opinion, it's the easiest thing you could sell online. It's you have all the data, you just buy the books for really cheap and you sell them. There's nothing to it. It's just hard work, that's all. But there's no like calculations really to be made. Like it's just easy. It's not like it's like wholesale or private label and you're doing research and you're also not risking a ton of money, and it's just like it's hard work and it's networking. That's the most important things about doing retail arbitrage used books.
And most people don't network. So if you do that step, you're worlds ahead of people, even if they've been doing it a lot longer than you. So network. Yeah, that was one of the biggest things that helped me throughout this challenge.
So over the 3-month period, how many books did you buy?
So let me share my screen here one more time. So total books that I actually purchased and listed came out to be 1,377. So I averaged 105 books a week for the total of the challenge. So just barely got over my goal of 100. That's one thing I wish I would have done more, was shoot a little bit higher, because I set a goal of 100 and of course I hit it, but just barely, because we always kind of do the minimum we set for ourselves. So if I set a higher goal, there's a good chance I probably would have hit that goal. But I still averaged over 100. There's like 2 weeks in there I didn't get 100, but there's quite a few weeks I got more than that. So it kind of evened itself out at the end. And then at the end of the challenge, 90 days in, I had sold 429 books. So about 33, I think 33% of my inventory so far had sold by the very end of the challenge already.
Nice. Do you know what the sales value was for those?
Yep. So I got actually all of that right here. So
You said you didn't have it all nice. It looks pretty nice to me, man.
Well, just some bold numbers next to some non-bold numbers. So my revenue at 90 days was $8,057. So my initial goal was to hit $10,000, which was a stretch goal by far, because when I initially made those calculations on the spreadsheet we have in the 100 Book Challenge, it shows your sales start coming in at week 2, but in reality, you're sending your books in at the end of week 1, so they don't get listed on Amazon until the end of week 2. So your sales numbers are kind of always off by a week. And then also 100 books, you have to get some higher price books to hit that 10,000 goal. So I will hit that 10,000 goal by the end of, I think, this week, or hopefully about a half a week more than that.
What is your, do you have any books in stock that were from your first shipment still?
That is a good question. I have to double check on that and see. My turn rate has been very high for most of this. I was expecting a lower turn rate because around this time of the year, books aren't selling extremely quickly. We don't have any textbook seasons, really, just a really, really low bump for summer school type thing. So I was averaging around 7% turn rate every single week, which is a pretty good turn rate. And some weeks I even had more than that. So I don't have those numbers for you, but I was selling on quite a few.
What was the turn rate?
So my total turn rate, it was somewhere, it was high 7s by the end of the challenge. Some weeks got as high as 12%, and some weeks I think got as low as about 5.5, but it averaged a little
per 30 days or per
week.
Per week. Actually. Oh wow, great.
And this, I wasn't having any special pricing for these books either. I was using the recommended pricing on ScoutIQ. So that's one of the things I'd do. I would list, I'd scan it, see what the recommended price was. If I was unsure, I'd still double check it, because it's not always a set in stone thing. They're triggers, so they're suggestions. Right. But normally that price is going to help the book move quickly, but it's going to price at the right point, so you're not.
And were you using the default triggers on ScoutIQ?
Yeah, just the default triggers in ScoutIQ. There's quite a bit of thought.
They're actually really good, and I like appreciate that. You know, compared to competitors, I feel like you can just roll with the ScoutIQ default triggers, and then little adjustments based on like what you're paying per books or whatever. But for the most part, you don't have to do anything.
Exactly, like the default trigger. Some people think like when I hear the word default, it's kind of just like the basic settings. They're not very good. You have to adjust them a lot from there, but Caleb put a lot of thought behind those triggers. They're actually the same rules he reprices his books with. And they're the triggers I was using the entire time throughout the 100 Book Challenge. And so they work pretty well. I think the turn rate shows it as well.
What scanner do you use?
So I always use the OPM 2002. I've tried the KDC one before. Caleb and I a little while ago actually did a review video on YouTube of all the main different scanners. And even after going through all the main scanners people use, both of us, I think, still like that 2002 the best. It has good battery life. They're cheaper than the 2006. You can get them used for like 60 to 80 bucks on eBay sometimes. And so I have those. I actually have 3 of them because I broke one, and then I have an extra one because I wanted an extra
How
one. So
did you break it? You dropped it?
nope. Turns out if you leave it in your pants pocket and put it in the washing machine, it doesn't work too well after. So don't leave it in your pants pockets and you should be good. But no, scanners make all the difference. When I was starting to scan books, I thought the phone was really, really fast because you've never used a scanner. As you know, the phone seems like it's quick, but as soon as you get one of those Bluetooth scanners and start scanning books, you realize you can do it 3 times, 4 times as fast as you could do it trying to use
Oh
your.
yeah. Yeah, there's two main things with speed with book buying, and one is having a Bluetooth scanner, the other one is having a database.
Yeah, exactly. The database is going to make it so much faster. If you actually go to ScoutIQ's website, this is probably the same for any app that has a downloadable database or live mode. I believe if you click on our pricing plans and then look further down on the page, there's going to be a video of which plan should I choose. If you click that, it's going to come up with a video with a side-by-side comparison of us scanning as fast as possible in database mode and in live mode. And the difference is you wouldn't believe how fast it is, how much difference it makes. And it really does while you're out scanning. If anyone's forgotten to download their database and switches it to live mode, they realize real fast when they have a crappy internet connection, it's going to take you a lot longer to scan.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what I like to tell people is that besides the general speed savings or time savings, which I think it's probably a little bit of a push to say you can scan 1 barcode per second. I think
Yeah.
you can do it, but 1 per 2 seconds is fully doable.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much like the speed that you would scan at a book sale when competing with people and going really fast. 1 barcode every 1 to 2 seconds. But try having live mode only. Like, say you're not in a rush, you're not competing against people, but there will be one day where you'll end up at a sale or a store that's either in a large concrete building or a large metal building in a basement or something, and you're missing out because you don't have signal and someone else has database and they're cleaning up, and that one day will just change your life forever, and you'll be like, I'm never going to get caught slipping again. Give me the database.
Yeah, I think it was actually you that I heard it from. You were talking about one time. It's not just about finding the best books; it's about how quickly you can get through all the bad books.
Yep.
How fast you're scanning makes all the difference. Whether you scan 1,000 books or whether you scan 500 books, it's going to make a
Yeah,
difference.
let's break that down. What did you say your accept rate was on average?
So the first 2 weeks, the ones where I was scanning a ton of books, my accept rate was scaring me because it was about 1%, if not below 1%. 1% was kind of higher, and I was about that. Later on in the challenge, it went between 3% and 6%. I think the highest I got was 10% at one location one time. But
Nice.
between 3 and 6%, which is pretty average. 3 to 5% is what we tell people is about average you can expect as an accept rate when you're doing a bunch of thrift stores and libraries.
Yeah, so what that means, guys, is that for every 100 books you scan, you should be happy to find 5. If you find 10, you should be extremely happy. Like, my intuition says that if you found 10 keepers per 100 books that you scanned, those books were probably donated by the same person to that store, and they were probably right next to each other on the shelf too, maybe even about the similar subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
So 5, that means you're going to get 50 keepers out of 1,000. So that's a good point. And when I said that, I didn't realize how important it was, but it's super true. To get those 50, your job is not to get those 50. Your job is to get through the 950 as fast as possible. And if you're using live mode, it's going to take you, I don't know, 5 seconds per scan, something like that. Like,
And how good the internet is.
that's a good
Yeah,
estimate?
it can take
Five
5 seconds.
five to
Scan,
7 seconds per scan. And if you
That,
have database mode, that's going to take you 2 seconds, 1.5 seconds per scan. So it's an insane amount of time saving.
yeah, exactly. That makes all the difference. And that, if you're new to book selling and that you're hearing kind of this accept rate and thing for the first time, hearing that you might find 3 to 5 books out of scanning 100 books might sound kind of disappointing and like that. Really, I'm going to scan 100 books just to find 3 to 5. But If your average list price is somewhere between, let's say, $18 to $20, my average list price I think was just at $20, like $20.05. Let's say that's your average list price. So let's say you find 3 books. Okay, I'll put it on the low side. You find 3 books out of scanning 100 books. If you're using a Bluetooth scanner in database mode, that should take you about 12 to 15 minutes to get through 100 books. You can probably even do it faster than that. So 15 minutes of time, you find 3 books valued at $20 after Amazon's fees and shipping and everything like that. You can expect to take somewhere between like $8 and $10 in profit from those books. So that's even with 3 books, about $30 in profit from 15 minutes of time scanning books. So even though it seems like it's low and you're not getting very much for the time you're spending, it's actually a lot of profit for the amount of time you're spending scanning books if you're doing it properly.
Awesome. Yeah, dude, it stacks up quick, right? Like you can be in there forever. Like a lot of people don't realize, I'm like, yeah, the book business is not really glorious, you know? It's like you might be on your knees for like, 25% of your day at a thrift store.
Exactly.
Have you seen people wear knee pads?
I've seen people wear knee pads. If you really want to see interesting people, as you know, go to book sales for libraries. That's where you see like the most interesting people that will kind of grunt and start looking at you if you get too close to them, or people cutting you off and taking the boxes you're trying to scan. People can get really, really mean at book sales.
Yeah, definitely. Extremely mean. Which takes us back to our other subject, which makes it very easy to be friendly with people and like to develop that relationship with the library workers.
Exactly. There's no read. You can still be a nice person while you go to book sale and still be successful. Like I'm sure you're nice when you go to book sales. Reason, like you said, you normally always come out with the most books compared to everyone else. You don't have to be mean,
Uh,
rude about people.
yeah, my focus is fast, and I don't have to be rude to be fast. So there is like borderline situations when I'll see like this little old lady, and she's not a bookseller, and I'm like about to like dive in on this area, and I'm not telling her this, but I'm like letting her like have her little few seconds, because I'm like, look, this is me giving you a courtesy. In about 7.5 seconds, I'm gonna scan all of these books. Like, so go ahead and get what you want. They're just looking with their eyes or whatever. But I just focus on being as fast as possible, and as long as I can do that, not touch anyone, and not make the area a mess, and also, buy a bunch of cookies from the bake sale. And I overpay. I always overpay. I've never been to a library sale where I didn't overpay. So if my total's, $73, I'll probably pay $100. Like it's just worth it. They remember you at the library. They're all volunteers. So if you have kids, and a wife, bring them, have them help you look good. Anything you can do to get on their good side, because some libraries actually hate booksellers. And I've even been to library sales where they banned scanners, and then eventually they had to allow people to scan again because they realized that the booksellers comprise, 90% of all the money that they bring in from the sales. Believe it or not, their job at the library sales, and it's usually ran by friends of the library. Their job is to raise money for the library, because the library needs money. They have all kinds of stuff they need to do. Their job, as much as they would like to, and they sometimes get confused, their job is not to make sure that the elderly people that donate to the Friends of the Library, have a chance to get this book or that book or what. Their job is to make the most money possible. Sometimes they get caught up with that, but as long as you're nice to them and you make everything good, just make it better than it was before you were there. Be friendly, small talk. They'll have a good impression of you, which is super important. Like, don't show up looking like a slob. Maybe get a haircut. You don't have to dress super nice, but just don't dress super crappy. You'll be putting yourself one step ahead of everybody else for sure.
Didn't you say that by doing that in the past too, you've gotten some extra books in the past? You've been able to take books after the sale and be able to go through them because you've kind of built that relationship during the sale?
Yeah, so a couple times I've purchased all the leftovers from a library book sale. Um, One time it wasn't so good, another time it was really good, and I think it just has to do with how many people showed up to the book sale. So instead of them just donating them to the Goodwill, One time I got them all for free, and it was a lot of books, like 10,000 books. And another time I think I paid 3 cents a pound or 2 cents a pound. I don't remember exactly, but I've had, early access before the preview sale. You help them set books up, then they let you scan books maybe 5 or 10 minutes before anybody else gets to. And through relationships that I've built at library sales, because when you buy the most books out of anyone, they remember you. So if on top of that you were nice, you had good manners, you dressed nice, you smelled good, et cetera, you bought a bunch of baked cookies, then maybe you gave cookies out to the workers, I don't know, whatever you did, and they remember you being the key. Then when you go to talk to them at the ongoing sale, which a lot of libraries have ongoing book sales in the library all the time, then they will give you like priority, so they'll say, hey, and I've gotten let into back rooms to go through books before they get put out on the shelf. I know when they put books out, what days they put books out, all these types of things. I even know, they say like, oh, we're selling online now, but we're only selling stuff over $30 online. So, but we're not selling textbooks, but we're not doing this or whatever. So it just helps you to be more efficient and of course make more money by just being nice.
That's one thing that really opened my eyes through this challenge, is that I talked to a few different libraries and they told me, oh, we actually already scan our books and we sell books online. And your first instinct might be, oh, there's probably nothing here, I shouldn't come here and scan. But it's kind of funny. The one source I was talking about where I had the most books consistently every single week was one of those libraries that sold online. Because just because a library sells online doesn't mean that they're good at selling online. They still might need help with it. And also, this particular library, once I actually figured out who did it and stuff like that, they sell through merchant fulfilled, and they have a super high cutoff in their price, like you had just said, like $30 or higher or something like that. So there's a lot of good books still there. And I found great books, high price books every single time, even though they sold on Amazon already. So it doesn't prevent you from finding good books just because they sell online.
Yeah, they don't know everything. And oftentimes, I mean, I'm sure you realize this too, just at like general stores that you go to, but you'll notice that, okay, maybe this store sells, there's so many nuances. So like, let's say there's a Goodwill and you go to it and there's never any good books because they scan everything in the back. But there's always good books on Tuesday and Wednesday, and you can't figure it out. You can't figure out why. Then you realize that Tuesday and Wednesday, the guy that scans the books has the day off. And the other guy who cares less about scanning books just puts them out. So then, Tuesdays and Wednesdays are good, Or you realize they scan everything, and it's hopeless to scan anything with a barcode. And they're smart, but they don't do any type-ins. So that means that your focus at that store should be title searches and type-ins. So you just have to be observant, but they're not perfect. They're volunteers. And also, what I like to add is that when you find a situation for a store that's like either really good, especially if they say they sell books online and you still find good books, get to the point where you can become friends with them, to the point where you can be like, well, look, I know what I'm doing. And if you guys are selling books online, you're not doing it right. And so maybe you should partner with me so that I can help you guys sell more books online, because what's better than whatever books you find is 50% of everything. So if you could negotiate a deal with a library or with a bookstore to let you sell the books for them, either on your account on consignment, which is built into the tracking spreadsheet that Caleb has, and there's a link down below for that. And it's super easy to manage. The consignment's ridiculous easy. It makes it so painless. Or you could set them up with with an Amazon account, and list them and do everything for them, but it's on their account. And then when their disbursement hits, you would issue them a bill for your portion of it, like using QuickBooks invoicing or something like that. But it's all opportunities, but you'll never know about what your opportunities are if you're not being nice and friendly and also observant, and just like become the solution for something. That's like how anything works. Why do people buy a product? Because it solves a problem. Why do people buy into a relationship? because it solves a problem or it satisfies a need that they have, right? So it's super important to not just be, oh, I'm a bookseller guy and I'm like all quiet and I just scan stuff and like I'm not, what are you doing? I'm not doing anything. Books, oh, I'm reading these. Like, no, you sell books. Everyone knows it. It's quite obvious, no one buys 12 books every single day, right?
Yeah, it should scream opportunity to you if they scan their books and you're still finding stuff there every single week. So that should turn on something in your head that says, hey, let's really work on this relationship here. So for the 100 book challenge, one of the things that is the most motivating, I think it's also the most discouraging at the beginning, but is that the compounding effect that it kind of has of listing consistently versus just listing every once in a while. When you list like the same amount of books every single week, it doesn't seem like much as one at once, but it starts compounding on itself really, really quickly. Specifically for the 3 months that I did this, take a look at these numbers right here. The very first month was only $961 in sales. It didn't seem like much at all for how much work I had been putting in. Granted, 961 for the first month on Amazon isn't terrible, but it wasn't the most motivating number at first. But then you can see really easily.
See, I think a better graphic would have been a snowball.
A snowball would be perfect for this.
That's what I tell everybody. Someday I'm going to write a general book about FBA, about selling books, like a beginner book, intermediate. But it will be called, or like tentatively called, Grow Your Snowball, right? It used to be a little bit different because I don't know if Caleb's talked to you about like how it used to be in the past with like less fees and the single ASIN exemption and all these things. I actually had 40,000 books in inventory at one point, 43,000.
No, I remember hearing that. That was before long term. You had storage fees and everything that would have crushed you today.
What's crazy is, right, and I just removed some more with this last removal. I have 8,000 books active, and I am still selling 80 to 85%, maybe even 90% of the dollar value as I was with 43,000 books.
Yeah.
So it totally wasn't worth it, I mean, I guess it was all profit or whatever, but in the long run I paid some fees and stuff. But
it also took the time to list 40,000 books, took a lot longer to process.
Right. Which is what I always tell people. I'm like, well, I have employees, so like it doesn't hurt me as much, right? But also on the inverse side of that, I'm probably not measuring it or tracking it as well as I should, like, should I buy that book where I only make 50 cents, even though it's going to sell really fast? I guess so, because I'm already here. But then that adds up to, how many of those a month, 1,000, 2,000. And then how long does it take my workers to do that? And blah, 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 blah. If I was doing the work myself, I might not buy those. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Kind of like the 80-20 rule, just same with everything, is that the majority of your profits are going to be coming from those higher priced books. But if you look at your time, the majority of your time is probably going to be spent on those $1 books, $2 books, the ones that make much. So
exactly.
Like sourcing all the work, it's a little bit differently. But when you're actually taking your time, and your time is limited, and you got to make the most of it. You might want to actually, even though it looks attractive to see $1 or $2 profit, because hey, it's $1, $2. It might,
especially when you think about the terms of ROI percentage, you're like, $2 profit, I paid 15 cents. You're like.
Yeah, exactly. You see the ROI, you're like, this is amazing, but time-wise, it might not be the best deal.
Yeah, book is still a portfolio business where, the more books you have, the better you'll do, but you have to be more strict with your guidelines of what books you're buying, especially now with the rolling 6-month long-term storage fee and the ever so dreadsome 25-cent per month charge after 12 months. Which is pretty much insane, right? So, so let's get back into your snowball.
Let me pull that back up. But just based on what you were just saying right there, one thing that's so important, that's so easy to miss because it's not the fun part. The fun part is selling books. But if you don't know your numbers, if you don't track those numbers and know what you're selling every single month, it's going to be very hard to see those trends and realize that, hey, I've sent off 50, 100 of these $1 books, but I only sold a certain percentage of them versus all the higher priced books. So if you don't have these numbers, you can't know which ones are best and which ones are worse. So track your numbers is extremely important to actually being successful in what you're doing, of course.
And if you guys need help tracking your numbers, there's a link down below for Caleb's tracking spreadsheet that he made. And I can't tell you enough how amazing it is. You export all of your data from Amazon, you drop it into there, you just click paste, it populates everything. There's like a billion tabs, there's like all kinds of bar graphs you can see. Do you have a copy of a tracking spreadsheet out that you can show them what it looks like?
Yeah, let me pull one up here. 1 second.
So Matt's going to pull up the tracking spreadsheet. For those of you that don't have the tracking spreadsheet, I highly recommend it. It is essential to understanding your numbers, to understanding what you paid for your entire inventory, which your accountant is going to want to know. What the value of what sold, what is the average rank, and when you listed stuff, what is the average rank of the stuff that's sold? What's your turn rate? Like all these, anything, it's the opposite of not knowing your numbers. You know way too many of your numbers once you have the tracking spreadsheet.
So Excel chose not to respond. 1 second. Let me see if I can get it pulled up.
So Matt's pulling up the spreadsheet. But like I said, guys, if you don't know your numbers, it's super easy. And I know a lot of people don't understand this or don't deal with it because when you're first starting out, you kind of want to think, hey, well, I know I'm making money, so I'm just going to keep making more money, and I know I'm good. But then you hire people, and now there might be some marginal things that you work on, and it can quickly get out of hand. The larger your inventory is, the more employees you have. If you're just a one-man show and you don't have a ton of inventory, it's not as bad as it is when you have a lot more inventory, but you can look at the data and make a lot of decisions. And I'm not the big data guy. Caleb is, and I think Matt's pretty good with data, but it's like certain once I can't think of the phrase for it, but once the landscape is bigger than you can see, like just from looking at it with your eye, you need to know how to utilize that data because it can tell you things like what I was talking about. It's like, hey, uh, 80%, 80% of your profits are generated by 20% of your inputs. And
Yeah.
so, and then the amount of work you spend on all those units is exactly the same. And so you're doing 80% more work than you need to do. What you should do is drop that 80% of work and try and find a way to focus that into more books that are similar to the 20%, because theoretically, I don't know the math on that. Do you know what the math is on that? If you could take your 80% and do what that would be like, that would be four more 20% or whatever. If you could make your
It'd be a lot more.
yeah, it'd be a lot more, guys. We're not mathematicians here. We're just resellers.
So I got the tracking spreadsheet here. Let me share it. This isn't the
Someone wanted
most.
to know, do you have the buy box? Do you have access to the used buy box?
I do have access to the used buy box, and
Have you had any problems with that?
I have. I haven't had any problem for the whole. So I started selling on Amazon a while ago. I had access to the used buy box before. Um, I started the 100 book challenge, which can affect your sales. If you have just starting out selling and you don't have access to the used buy box yet, that can be a factor in affecting it until you get it, until you get some of those reviews in there. So that's one kind of leg up, I guess I would say I had on people who are actually just starting.
Right. The number one way to attain the used buy box is to be an FBA seller. Most FBA sellers have access to the used buy box. If you don't, your metrics could be causing it, or it could be a glitch with Amazon's system. And I recommend that you contact Seller Central, chat, email, telephone, send Jeff Bezos an email, and get it figured out, because you should have access to the used buy box if you're an FBA seller. And if you do not have access, you can lose a lot of money. You're just missing out a lot of opportunity. Most customers just click buy, and we're lucky enough that there's a used buy button under the new buy button, which is what the buy box is. And that's how most of our sales are being generated. So without it, it's a huge handicap.
Actually, I think it's a bigger handicap than most people realize. So Caleb was talking to a big seller one time who, for some reason, his account, they lost privileges to the used buy box all of a sudden. It was a while back when quite a few people did, except theirs wasn't returned when everyone else was. And I think it was like a 3-month period. they did not have access to the used buy box, and their sales, I believe, I don't quote me entirely, but I think it was 60% drop off in their sales by not having access to the used buy box. So whether it's 60% or 40%, either way, it's a very large number, and you want to try your best to get it and maintain access to it, because it really does make or break your results over the long run. Right away, you're not going to have it, but really try and get up to having that buy box. It makes a difference.
Yeah, huge difference.
So here's a tracking spreadsheet example for you. It's not the most updated numbers. I don't think I put my most recent listing in here, but it has a simple tab for you to put all of your listing data. You just paste it in there. You can put all of your sales data in there. It's taking a little while to load here. Sorry. Let me just go to the sales dashboard. It's still scrolling here. I scrolled up too much.
Oh yeah, when I had that thing full of, we had to break it down. So when you fill it up with 40,000 SKUs, it's a little slow.
Yep. All right, there, I think it stopped. Sales dashboard. Okay. So it has a bunch of sheets down here where sales dashboard, you can see all of your sales. It's still, oh, there we go. You can see all of your sales here. You can see total sales is 12,871. This has some sales that weren't from 100 Book Challenge. It breaks down your cost of goods sold, all of that good stuff. Then if you scroll down, you can see a breakdown of your units sold, your average sales price per month, all that good stuff. And then source dashboard is amazing, because if you're using something like AccelerList or whatever you're listing, you can put a source and then you can navigate by that source. So I can see 100 book challenge. I can see all of my metrics for the 100 book challenge, see when I listed books, how many percentage of them sold. I can see my turn rates here.
So did you say you have the 100 book challenge listed as a source?
Yep. So that's how I track the 100 book challenges with the track spreadsheet. I used 100B as my source, and so I can search in this and see all of my metrics for 100B and see all of those metrics lined up for me. I can see my turn rates exactly for that source. I can see how many books I listed for that source. Everything is broken down really cleanly here, and it's not loading. It's stuck right here, but that's kind of a decent example of it.
Can you show them? Can you show them the data entry part? Because I want it to be clear that it's like a caveman could run the tracking spreadsheet.
Yeah, let me see if it will load for me. So on the sales data tab, all it is really this simple. So on your Amazon page, if you go to your Amazon sellers account, you go up to reports and you hit, I think it's like payout or something like that. Payments, one of the second ones. You can choose a date range report. You put what dates you want to export. All you do is download the file Amazon gives you. You literally copy and paste that file in here, and it populates the entire spreadsheet with all your sales data. And then to get even more specific, you want to put your listing data as well. So if you use like the free listing spreadsheet that's available on bookflipper.com, you can export that into here as your listing data. Or even better, if you use AccelerList, they have a tab after you finish your shipment, after you finish your listing, where you can export a file specifically for the tracking spreadsheet. Just paste that data in there, and it automatically populates the whole spreadsheet. So you have to paste 2 forms in there, and it populates all your info, and you can see metrics based on the most important one, I think, sometimes is the metrics based on sales range. You can see what percentage of books between 1 million and 2 million have you ever sold that you've listed, what percentage of books between 0 and 500,000 have sold. So you can really see where you need to stop listing, where you need to start listing more, and you can see the profit for each one of those categories. I think it's frozen on me, so I'm not probably going to get much out of this right now. It stopped. But it really does make or break your business, knowing these numbers and figuring out what actions you're doing that are causing the biggest results and which ones are taking away from your results. What can you stop and what can you do more of? Because that's just going to change your business.
When you first heard about selling books, what was your, did you learn about it through Caleb?
So I did. So I've always had kind of entrepreneurial mindset. I think most people that try and start businesses, it kind of started with them at a young age. But I'd already graduated. I was in a career, kind of like a corporate type career. And I was at a business networking event. So I happened to sit at the same table Caleb was sitting at. He was sitting across the table from me. But I heard him telling someone that he had just quit his job. He was selling books online. And I think everyone at the table, I remember the conversation specifically, they're all kind of like, "Oh, you're selling books. I didn't know books were really selling anymore. Aren't everything going to like Kindle and Nook and stuff like that?" The same thing everyone says. They think
Exactly.
gone and away. And Caleb's like, "No, there's actually a lot of people that buy books." And he's like, "I even have friends that buy them by the truckload." This is right when he kind of quit his day job. So eFlip wasn't created yet. ScoutIQ wasn't created yet. Any of this stuff. So he had just quit his day job and he was selling books just full time. That's what he was doing. And it sparked my interest, not in selling books. Books weren't right away. That wasn't the first thing that sparked my interest. Oh, I want to sell books. But to me, it was I wanted to see how he quit his day job, how he got to that point, what that looked like for him. Because at the time, I had a great job, but I knew that eventually I wanted to kind of start my own business. I wanted to see how someone else had done that transition. So I took a risk after the networking event. I went up to him. I was like, "Hey, can I pay for coffee sometime? Will you go out for coffee and just let me pick your brain a little bit on how you walked away from your day job?" And he agreed. And I actually took a while to follow up with him, but then I followed up with him. We sat down for drinks. I let him know about the businesses I was doing, and he was kind of intrigued because I just sold my first business. And it was a lot different than his businesses. So we were kind of exchanging ideas, and we became friends from there. And we were friends for a year and a half or so before we actually became business partners. So opportunity can arise when you're not expecting it, but that's kind of how I got introduced to books. And so, yeah, Caleb was the one that introduced me to selling books, and that's where I started originally.
Awesome. What business did you sell, if you don't mind me asking?
So I had a lot of little businesses I'd started. Most of them weren't successful at all. But one of the businesses I'd started is subscription box companies. I was like, this is a great idea. I was like, what is there a weird subscription box for that people would be willing to buy, but that no one is currently doing? And there's a fine line there because if no one's currently doing it, it's either a brilliant idea or it's a terrible idea.
Right.
One of those two is there's a reason why no one's doing it, right? And I was like, people spend a lot of money on ammunition. I like going out shooting to the shooting range and stuff like that. It's something I like doing for fun. And so it's something I was familiar with. So I was like, what if I started an ammo box business? There's one business that already existed for, but they had just shut down. I wasn't sure why, but it seemed like they had a good following. So I was like, hey, let me start out by just building an Instagram page. Because one thing I'd learned by this point in life was that you don't want to invest all your money into a business, build a business up, and then realize after you spend all this time and money that no one wants the product. It's the worst thing you can do. So verify your ideas before you invest money in them. So started up an Instagram page. I put a couple posts saying that something was coming that was big. I showed people that maybe there was going to be a subscription box for ammo, and people started following the page. Long story short, when I launched, I had I think close to 2,000 email in my list. I did $2,500 in subscriptions in the first hour. It was great, but I figured out that ammo is super heavy and it takes forever to package up. And after shipping out close to 15,000 rounds from my little 2-bedroom apartment, I was like, this is not sustainable for me where I live right now. So I sold the business online, not for much. I think it was around,
like on Empire Flippers or something?
Exactly. It was actually Empire. It was either Empire Flippers or Flippa or something like that. I think it's called Flippa. One of those two. I forget which one it was. But I listed it and people were actually interested in it. I was like, hey, here's all my customers. Here's my Stripe data. You can see all the subscriptions. I don't have the resources to do this the best myself. And so I think my first offer was like $6,000, but the person never put the money in escrow. I actually ended up selling it for like $3,500, I think, which was actually really, really good considering the profit margins are so slim when you're sending that much weight.
How long was it from the time you started till the time you sold it?
It was only a month from the time I actually launched it and started taking money until the time I sold. I did 2 shipments. The first shipment, then I had the second shipment, and I handed it off to the other guy because I was like, "This, I can't keep doing this in my."
That's pretty good, man. What are the laws on mailing bullets? I would
Actually,
figure there's some kind of law
that was
about
the most
that.
surprising thing for me. I actually met with a lawyer to make sure I was understanding everything right. But you only have to put a little sticker. It's a diamond with 2 black triangles in each end that basically says it's dangerous goods. And UPS or FedEx ships it. You can't ship it USPS, but that's the only thing you have to do. You slap that sticker on there. It shows it's dangerous.
Does that make them sort it to go ground only so there's no bullets on a plane?
So yeah, it goes grounds only. So it can't go planes. Then you have to be a little specific. There's certain counties in certain states that don't allow shipment of it. So
is it called ORMD?
It is. Yep. So you can either put that D sticker on it, or you can put the little diamond label on it.
It's the same thing if you try to sell aerosol cans. I only know this because I purchased 1,000 cans of Never Wet, which is It's a hydrophobic nanoparticle 2-part coating which repels water. It makes a coating so fine that it's the distance between the molecules is smaller than water molecules, so they can't touch anything that you coat it with. So the water just like rolls right off. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna flip these. I bought a whole bunch of them from the Habitat for Humanity restore. I think I paid they had a ton and they wanted $1 each. And I was like, I'll give you 50 cents. I'll buy all of them. And I was so hyped. And then I got home just to realize that it wasn't worth it because it's kind of expensive to ship ground ORMD. So I ended up just liquidating them on Craigslist, but that's how I know about ORMD.
Yeah, so I don't know if the person after me ever figured out a better way to get shipping and stuff done. I'm assuming that's why no one had done that before because shipping is so expensive. But it was a good learning experience for me. I actually was profitable on it. I didn't spend a single dime until I'd made all the money up front first through pre-sales and stuff like that. So it was a good learning experience for me. And it was an intriguing idea to be able to buy, build, and then flip a business that quickly. And so that's the business I'd started right when I was kind of talking to Caleb at the initial.
Quick question. On your website, the100bookchallenge.com, you have links to your YouTube videos?
I do. So if you scroll to the very bottom of the page, there's actually 2 of us that did the 100 book challenge. It was myself and then John Troutman. John Troutman had a bulk book arrangement he was already doing, and so he did the bulk book version of it. I did the actual going to thrift stores, libraries, and stuff like that.
Cherry picking.
Yeah, and you can see both those numbers there. His revenue numbers aren't updated yet. He's getting me those numbers. It was kind of funny. Side note, there was about 4 weeks during the challenge. He didn't have any numbers updated. So he was like, I didn't list anything this week. And I was like, what's going on? What is he doing? He's like, something big is coming though. He's like, just wait. So for 4 weeks, it showed he didn't have any listings. And then I figured out there were some problems with his supplier. And then it ended up actually working out better in his favor. So the last 2 weeks of the challenge, he listed 930 books 1 week. And the next week, the last week of the challenge, he listed close to 500 books, I think. So he blew my numbers out of the water just the last 2 weeks of the challenge alone because he had kind of hooked up this really sweet deal. So his numbers are updated, but
but let's also pay attention to the fact, don't let that distract you from the fact that he had to deal with bulk books, which is a whole nother barrel of fish, right? There's truckloads, there's negotiating the shipping, there's having a dock, there's having tons of books on hand that you can't sell on Amazon, and you have to figure out what to do with them, whether you're paying to get them thrown away because paper is not worth anything right now, or you have a physical bookstore, or selling them to some other sap on Craigslist or whatever. But and you have to go through them all, right? Does he have employees?
No, so he was he's starting to expand his bulk side of the business now, but for up until very recently, he would literally go there. He would have them put the Gaylord of books right by his truck, and he'd sit in the back of his pickup truck, scanning all the books in the Gaylord, just going through all of them and picking out all the good ones.
Just throwing the good ones into the back of his pickup truck.
I'm pretty sure just throwing the good ones in the back of his pickup truck. He'd go through the whole box and then come back next week and do the same thing. So it was taking a long time to do it, but he's figured out some ways to work.
It works good like that, actually. I've done several little situations where I had 1 or 2 Gaylords and we just got a little U-Haul and we had them loaded into that from the back of a truck, or you had the truck dropped off and then you go through it like that. So it's efficient because you're removing the part about removing the Gaylords from the truck, and instead just diving into the bin and going through them and then letting them, then taking them all back to where they came from.
Exactly. And just in case anyone's not familiar with the term, a Gaylord's basically just a pallet of books is all we're talking about.
Yeah. And if you weren't familiar with that term, you're welcome. You can always remember that Reezy is the one that made you familiar with that term. And you must have been scratching your head like, what in the hell is Reezy talking about?
It took me forever to figure out what a Gaylord was of books. I was like, what in the world? Or are they just making up a funny term for it? Or is that an actual measurement of books?
Yeah, I don't understand it. Do you know the history of that word? Is it
I have no idea. I
feel like it's an English
or something.
It's got to be like an English word, yeah? Like, I mean, not English, but you know what I mean, like from the old country.
No idea, but it's a very common term in this business,
So what are some of the main insights that you think you've learned about books as someone who's relatively new to books that we didn't talk about already?
I actually have some of those written down. Let me pull up right here.
Dude, amen for
I
prepared
know.
guests. I
We'll just
love it.
touch on this super briefly. I won't talk too much about each one. So
So if you are watching this video, guys, make sure you go to Matt's website, the 100bookchallenge.com, sign up for his email list. You have an email list there, yeah?
yeah, so we have an email list for the 100 book challenge there.
I'm assuming you do. Sign up for his email list, find his YouTube, click on it, subscribe to his YouTube, comment on one of his videos. Reezy sent me something to let him know that that you came from my side of the field, so that he can understand, who's coming in new to his channel, where they're coming from, etc. He's making some really good videos. I particularly like them because he's more beginner, so he's not like clouded with the basic stuff, or like, for example, if you want me to make a video about how to pack a box, like I really dread that, or like how to sticker a shipment, or like whatever, but that's Matt's world, so if you're just getting started, you could really relate to the type of content that he's creating.
Yeah, actually, I have a pretty nice setup here because I'm new to this idea of kind of selling books and doing this consistently online. But on the other hand, I'm business partners with Caleb, who's very experienced in that area. So I kind of have the beginner mindset, as well as I have a resource to kind of reach out to and teach me all the things that I don't know on kind of the more experienced side of it. So I'm able to get my questions answered pretty quick, which is nice part about being partners with Caleb.
So in the chat right now is my boy, the Thriftologist. His real name is Landon. He's a seller from the Midwest. And I met him at a conference in Chicago. Really cool dude. He looked up Gaylord, and I don't think this is the definition that we're looking for, the volumetric definition, but it says Gaylord is a name of Norman French origin from the Old French Gaillard, like Gaillard, meaning joyful or high-spirited. So we knew that that's not the definition that we are looking for.
Maybe people are joyful, high-spirited when they see a whole
crate full of books.
Been through before.
Yeah, I don't know, but I really like the fact that we were just talking about that, and then he went and grabbed the definition.
That was perfect.
At some point, I want to have the show like locked down like that, where I could just be like Joe Rogan and I could just shout it out like, "What's the population of the U.S.?" 10 seconds later, we're coming back with the actual numbers.
Yeah. So I'll touch on these points super fast. I see some questions popping up in there. I want to take a swing at too. So real quickly, I've already said this a couple times. The very first one is just track. If I wouldn't have written down what locations I went to, how many books I got from it, and what day I went there, when you're going to like 25 plus locations, it's super easy to forget when you last went there, if it was successful, how many books you got, and you'll never pick up on trends of when they list books, or certain days better than other days, unless you're talking to the employees as well, which you should be. But track and know your numbers. It'll motivate you, and it'll also help correct you when you are wrong about what you're doing. Be accountable. I think the biggest thing for me was I knew I was going to have to make an update video at the end of every single week. And so I better get 100 books. Otherwise, people are going to know I did not get those 100 books. So don't make this like a kind of a private goal for you. Share it on social media, share it with other people so other people can kind of hold you accountable to it as well. Or join the Book Flipper group, where a lot of people doing the challenge already are.
Yeah, definitely. Caleb's Facebook group, the Book Flipper, is probably one of the best, besides my group, of course, because that's my group. But probably one of the best book selling. It's like only booksellers, whereas my group is kind of like hodgepodge. Booksellers, resellers, a little bit of comedic jokers.
Yeah, just make sure you join both. You're gonna have the best of both worlds. So the other point I have here, the last one is scan once. We kind of talked about this. Don't go through a store and scan the same books you scanned the week before. You're wasting your time. You're going to spend forever scanning stuff you've already done. So pay attention to the stickers, pay attention to where you're going, and use some of the tips Reezy was talking about, just to make sure you're only scanning stuff once. Oops, go back here. Another one is buy smart. If you're just starting out and you use the default triggers on ScoutIQ, you're going to probably be pretty successful with it. Using the default triggers are set up well, but that's no excuse for not learning the numbers on the screen. No trigger is going to replace you making a quick judgment of the screen. So know your numbers, learn what sales rank is, learn what e-score is, kind of how to make the best buying decisions. Hey there. Um,
Say
I
hi.
have here was to list on a schedule. This is one thing that I was terrible at before, is that I would stack up books from like 2 or 3 weeks and then realize that I hadn't listed them. And everyone loves scouting. Everyone hates listing the books. So every Thursday I would list books. That was my night to list. I made sure I did it on a Thursday. I got them out, got them in boxes, and got them out the next morning. So listing the schedule, make you more consistent. And you'll never sell a book that's sitting in your house unless you're doing merchant fulfilled. So get the books out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's a great point, and also lends to the point where I like to tell people that there's a certain order of how you should invest in your Amazon business. I'd say the first is you're doing all the work yourself and you're just acquiring as much inventory as possible. Next is you start investing into software and services to make your business more efficient and more profitable, free up some of your time. And then as soon as possible, maybe even before you start paying yourself, I think you should hire an employee to process for you. So, because some people, I mean, buying books or buying whatever you're buying is the fun part. It may be more or less fun to some people. Maybe you're not selling books or whatever it is. I mean, I think it's fun. Honestly, it's like a treasure hunt, right? Like
It is.
there's some stuff I would rather be doing. And yes, the fun part of it is presupposed on my brain because of the whole making profit part. But let's be real. If one was the fun part and one was the sucky part, listing them is definitely the sucky part. Finding them and checking your sales is the two funnest parts for sure. Um, so hire someone to do the work that you don't like to do, because, and another thing about it is not only will it get done regularly and faster, but that time that you would normally spend processing, you can spend sourcing more books. So it makes sense, at least in my opinion, is that when you know you're losing money because you're processing, when you could be out buying books, sometimes it's like painfully obvious. Maybe there's a book sale and you can't go to it because you just went to a book sale last night and you have 1,000 books in your house and you need to get them out or whatever. That's when you should hire some help so that you can, anytime you invest in your business, it should be either for giving you more time, which will make you more money, or directly making you more money.
And I think one big thing about outsourcing is that so many people are worried if they show someone how to list their books, they're going to lose their entire business to them. But there's a lot of people that don't want to be entrepreneurs. They don't have that mindset. They just like knowing they're going to get a certain amount of money at the end of an hour's time, or maybe per book even. And they're more than happy to learn it, list the books from you, and they're not going to try and steal all your business, steal your business ideas, and take everything and run with it themselves, like you kind of think everyone will. And so just find someone that wants a job, wants some money, and pay them per book, pay them per hour. It doesn't mean they're going to steal your business, and you're helping someone out. If they do start their own business, good for them. You help someone start a business.
Yeah, a lot of people are just workers, just employees. They don't want to be an entrepreneur. They want to be able to watch Netflix and play Fortnite. They want to be able to forget about what they were doing. As entrepreneurs, we wake up in the middle of the night and think about work. We think about it in the morning. We don't stop. We basically never clock out. We might work more during some times, but it's hard to clock out. Like personally, I've found over the last decade plus that the best way for me to clock out is to just drink a few beers, because then I'm pretty much worthless as far as my intellectual capacity goes and my focus. And so then I just go, oh, can't work anymore. But otherwise I'll work till 2 a.m. on average. Like I just can't help it. I'm a super workaholic.
It's hard to comprehend. Not everyone does that.
Right. And I
That right
think
away.
Caleb made a good point where he said that, and I'm not sure if Caleb is the one that pioneered this thought or not. I think so, but he basically said that if you're unsure if someone is a good candidate to be a worker for you, start just casually talking to them about the business. Start sharing stuff with them. Start sharing more and more with them and trying to get them interested in trying to get them to start their own business. Hey, do you know what I mean? This book stuff, you should try it. Like blah, blah, blah. This is what I've been doing. And then when they don't start a book business, hire them to be your employee.
Yep, that's a great way to put it. And then the very last point I had on here, just my takeaway, was be decisive. I think there's one end of this, there's two ends of the spectrum. Either the people that just rush through and they don't pay any attention. And then there's the opposite end where you have those people that scan a book, they sit there, they stare at the screen, they go to Amazon, they check the chart, they go back to their screen, and they take forever to make one single decision. And it's easy to kind of be on either end of the spectrum, but be decisive, but also know your numbers. Don't spend way too long, but also don't do it way too fast. Just find a nice flow, get through the books as quickly and efficiently as you can while still realizing the data that you're looking at. Those are my biggest takeaways from the challenge that kind of stuck with me throughout the 13 weeks.
That makes a lot of sense. So we have the actual reason it's called a Gaylord here in the chat. But before I get to that, I just want to remind everyone that it's my birthday today. And normally I don't toot my horn on the fact that it's my birthday, but I published a book today. It's my first book I've ever written. It's the only digital product I've ever made. And this is the first time in 2.5 to almost 3 years that I've ever sold anything to you guys that was produced by me or had anything offered to you. So it would mean the world to me and would be a great way to wish me a happy birthday if you guys would purchase my book, which is available in the link down below. The other thing is that we were going to talk about marketing, but the show is running on a little bit. What do you think about doing another show, Matt, where we can talk marketing?
Oh, I'd be happy to do that. But I just, real quick, I took a peek through Reezy's new book, and by no means am I an expert by any way, but I love to research things and researching, selling, doing all the selling and stuff like this. I thought I was going to know everything that he had in his book. Not a single tip I don't think I had really known before on how to get extra value from the books that you're listing. So there really is a ton of value in the book that he just published, because out of all of his chapters, there's very few tips I'd even ever heard of. And when I started looking at some of those numbers, it's amazing how much money can be made on some of the deals that you talk about in there and some of the weird ways you can buy and sell books that you don't think are profitable. So it's definitely worth the $67, whatever low amount he's selling it for. You could be selling it for a lot more than that, because you're going to make that up. Just take a day, read the thing. You're going to make that up in a day of putting that advice into practice. You're probably going to make a lot more than that doing that in just a single day. So definitely check out the book.
Awesome. Thank you for the plug and on top of the plug. So let's get into the main reason everybody tuned in is because they want to know where the word Gaylord came from. So the real Gaylord container term is due to the first bulk bins being manufactured by the original Gaylord Container Company of St. Louis, which was acquired by Crown Zellerbach of San Francisco in 1955. So apparently it was a standardized size popularized by a certain container company.
God, I wonder why they named it that name, though.
I'm gonna guess that it's someone's last name. Now, okay, guys,
Probably
we need the
is.
next level. We need to know why the original Gaylord Container Company was called that. If anyone wants to look that up. But shout out to Dweeb Screed, who was the first one to come with that, shortly followed up by the Thriftologist. So what's next for you? 200 book challenge?
No, so I'm going to switch things up a little bit. It was great being able to go out these last 90 days and really be consistent going to stores and stuff like that. But I really want to try, now that I've built up a little capital with this, I've got profit coming in, got some built up in the business account specifically from this challenge. I'm going to take that money and then invest it into online arbitrage, mainly using eFlip. And I'm going to try out doing online arbitrage for the next maybe 90 days, something like that, set a goal for myself. Specifically because now is a great time to buy textbooks in the off season and then have a really, really nice payday in the textbook season. That's something
in August and September.
Exactly. And that's right about the end of.
Are you going to try to do 100 books a week online?
No, so the way I'm going to do online, at least the way I think I plan on doing it right now, is I'm going to set a dollar amount I plan on spending every single week and a certain ROI percentage I want to hit. So let's say
and your average ASP or your ROI is going to be much higher on these books.
Yeah, so I'm going to spend, let's say $400 a week is what I'm going to spend, and I want to get an ROI of 150 to 200% minimum. Let's say 200%. So it doesn't matter if I buy one book that was $400 and is selling for like, that's bad, a book for $200 is selling for $500. I could buy one or two books in a week, or I could buy a bunch of $30 books that are going to be textbooks selling for $100 in textbook season.
Right. So let's talk about what's going to happen with your inventory continuing onward, because I know you can forecast that even though you're not selling. But first, before we do that, I'm going to remind everyone that it's my birthday and there's 72 people watching this right now, but there's only 36 thumbs up, 36 likes. So I understand if you guys can't afford to buy the book, but the least you could do for my birthday is smash the freaking like button. So let's get the likes closer to the amount of people that are watching. There's 36 likes right now, and there's 74 people watching. I would like to see the gap closed on those two numbers, preferably. But let's talk about your inventory going forward. What type of numbers do you expect to do over the next, X amount of time?
So let me bring, so revenue numbers are kind of fun to talk about because they're bigger numbers, of course, but the real results in your business are going to come from profit, right? Doesn't matter if you make $1 million in revenue if you have a very, very small profit margin. So let's talk about profit real quickly. So profit for 90 days, my profit right now is $2,650 in profit. So this is above and beyond what I spent. This is actual profit from it. My ROI on units sold right now is about 112%, which I have.
Actually, that's your Rio.
Oh, yep, that is my Rio.
That's your RIO.
So Rio stands for something even more fancy, but it means the same thing basically. So my profit there, profit for $2,650 might not seem like much right now, but first of all, if you break it down by the amount of time I spent, it actually already equals something like $16 an hour. But over the next 6 months, all the way up to a year, these books are going to keep selling. Just because I'm done listing books specifically for this challenge, these books are going to keep selling for quite a while afterwards. So my expected profit,
go ahead,
on the formulas that Caleb's used for a long time, a pretty good way and reliable way of seeing how much profit you can make, will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $13,000 in profit just from this challenge alone. So 90 days of time, I spent about 10 to 14 hours a week doing this.
Let's extrapolate that because you seem to roughly know your hours invested. Can you apply your hours invested to what you expect to when everything's done and sold?
Yeah,
I mean, I can get a calculator out if you don't have
actually,
one.
I'm pulling the calculator up right now. I almost hate to do this because the ROI seems so high that it almost seems like a get-rich-quick scheme when it's not, because it does take work.
Honestly, I have to tell everybody that ever since the internet was a thing, I always wanted to make money on the internet. And books were the first thing that I found that were a surefire. I mean, there's so much harebrained bull crap that I tried to make money on the internet, like getting paid to watch ads or to fill out surveys or to have banner ads on this custom browser or just like blah, 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 blah. Books are a surefire thing. A caveman could sell books, guaranteed. No offense, Mr. Caveman.
It's so true. So I took the lowest numbers, right? So I averaged between 10 and 14 hours. There was 1 week I got as low as 7 hours in a week to do all of it. So let's take the higher number. Let's say I spent 14 hours a week. If you do what I said and you're a little more efficient with it and stuff, you know the place you're going, it's very reasonable, 14 hours a week. Times 13 weeks, it's like 185 hours, I believe. And then divided by the lowest expected profit, $10,000, it comes out to $54 an hour.
But that was only for 13 weeks, though, right?
That was for 13
weeks. I guess
weeks.
You're done working. You're done working.
Exactly. For this set of books. Yeah. So
right.
13 weeks. I can actually pull up. This is even a better example right here. So for the time I spent, it ended up being $54 an hour once all those books sell, which is crazy.
Which is insane. You have to go to college to get paid that much and have a huge student loan debt.
It's crazy. It's even crazier.
Not to mention your life would just suck because, I mean, unless you're doing something you absolutely love because you have less control of your time. It's safe to say you have like better control of your time now.
Oh, definitely.
And you spend more time with your family because I know you have a little one.
Yeah, that's what was important for me. My very first 2 weeks, I was like, this 90 days is honestly going to suck because I'm spending all the nighttime I was with them outsourcing books. And it was fun sourcing books, but I'd much rather be spending more of that time with them. So figuring out how to get the hours down was important to me. So look at this. If you go to 100bookchallenge.com, we have a free spreadsheet, no sales or anything with it, that'll show you, you can put in your own numbers you want to get in here and you can see how much money you'd be able to make realistically with the time you spend. So if you have a starting inventory of 0 and you want to list a target of 100 books a week, average buy cost, my average buy cost hopefully is higher than most of yours. Ended up being about $1.80. A lot of my stores are higher. I bought books at $3, $4, $5. 35-cent shipping per book. Turn rate, my turn rate was higher. I'm going to put my turn rate here a little lower, 7%. Average is about, it says right here, 2.5 to 6%. So let's just put 6%. Do a higher average one, because if you're pricing with ScoutIQ, you can probably hit that. Average sales price of, let's do lower. Let's just do $18. Even though it's closer to 20 for me right now, let's just do $18 average sales price. So it's going to populate this right here. Year one, you're going to do $66,000 in revenue and $23,000 in profit.
And that is just for 90 days, correct?
No, so this is going to be, if you did this for, it's going to forecast out for a year. So this is because of the lower turn rate here. If I put my numbers in here of $20 average sales price and my 7% turn rate, these numbers are going to go up quite a bit. First year would be $29,000 in profit. Oh, nope, sorry, 32, it just updated. 32,000, but year two is where it starts picking up, because it's still snowballing for the entire first year. Year two would be somewhere closer to almost $50,000, $46,000 in profit, and $100,000 in
this is really great. So let's see how many of you guys that are watching are marketers or have a marketing mindset, because did you realize that the whole 100 book challenge is marketing for ScoutIQ? Did you guys realize that? I'm curious. Let me know in the chat if you guys realize that. I mean, obviously Matt is doing it, but it's an awesome piece of data to have, to be able to share with people, to say, look, if you use our software and you stick with it, this is what can happen.
Exactly. It's not even, the reason why the 100 book challenge I think is powerful is because, of course, if our customers are successful, they're going to stay customers longer. But if you look, I don't even really mention ScoutIQ in my videos very much, because I more want to get people involved with books, selling books. And once they realize it's profit, if they actually stick to it for 90 days and see the numbers, I know they're going to be hooked on it and stay with it. And ScoutIQ, of course, I believe is one of the best things you can go out there to actually go and scout and stuff. So hopefully you'll find the software with it and use it. But Caleb and I don't want to take money if you're not being successful with it. You don't pay monthly if you're not getting any value from it. So the best thing we can do is to show you how to get value from it. And there's no better way than doing it ourselves and showing you every single week what I'm actually doing, how much money is actually being made, putting it all out there for you to see. Yeah, and I didn't lie about my numbers. I came in at $8,000. I went below my target of $10,000. I showed that, but I also showed my numbers every single week and why I hit those numbers, because I think it's important to see what's realistic, set realistic expectations, but also show you if you're consistent, you can make very decent money. $46,000 is crazy in year two by spending 10 to 14 hours a week sourcing books. That's ridiculous.
What does your wife think about selling books?
Before I even did the 100 book challenge, when I'd go out scouting, I would always have her have another phone and she'd go out with me. She enjoyed it as well. It's not as easy now because our little 13-month-old runs around and pulls books off the shelves and goes scouting. So she's been staying home with him while I've been going out, but she actually enjoys it. It's fun for her as well. And while he's in bed, sometimes she comes out here and helps me list as well. And listing as a team makes it go so much faster. So it's a fun thing to do. It's really easy to learn once you learn those first key things. It's not a difficult thing to do, like Reezy keeps saying over and over again, once you learn the steps.
It's not difficult in the sense of, forming a strategy and planning, and like knowing your numbers is good, but like the target is so big with books, you can succeed without knowing your numbers and like all this other stuff. But it's like, it's hard work and networking. That's pretty much it. So other than that, it's like there's a lot of other things you could do that require so much, logistics and strategy and seeing what the market is at and what are the customers doing, and, tracking every little thing to the unit, or whatever. And books are it's just simple. It's almost like a math problem, right? Like, I don't like doing math, but I respect math because it's not like it's like an essay or a psychological question. There's an input and there's an output. There's only one real answer. I mean, I didn't get to like irrational math or whatever it's called. I can't even help my high school daughter with the math that she does, but you know what I mean, right? It's a machine, and you just run the machine and it works. It spits money out.
Yep, it's the hardest part about it is staying consistent and doing it every single week, especially in those first few weeks when you're expecting the money to pour in and you're not seeing what you expect right away. It's going to take a little bit of time, but stick with it and you'll definitely see the results of it.
Definitely. Awesome, man. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
Not much other than if you're interested in the challenge, go download the free spreadsheet, put in, even though it's called the 100 book challenge, if your number is smaller than that, that's fine. We had people doing the challenge that their target was 50 books a week or even 25 books a week. Even at 25 books a week, you can still make enough to go on a very nice vacation with your family at the end of the year, just finding 25 books a week. So it doesn't need to be 100 books a week, but try it out, try it for 90 days and stick with it. If you have any questions, I'm on Facebook. You can look at my YouTube channel and contact me there, or Instagram, just Matthew.
Yeah, and I'll get all that stuff in the description, but you can find all of it at his website, the100bookchallenge.com. If you are going to start up the 100 book challenge, let me know. Comment down below, hashtag 100. Do you want to do the 100 or 100 book challenge?
We have it as the 100 book challenge right now, but people have been using both. So
yeah. So let's just keep it with the, because it fits the website or whatever. So if you're going to get on the 100 book challenge train, comment down below, hashtag the 100 book challenge. And if you're on Instagram or Twitter, make your posts and use the hashtag the 100 book challenge and tag me also so that I can see it. I would love to follow along with your progress as Matt would also. It's my birthday, like I said before, guys, and I got to go out and have a birthday dinner. I didn't think the show was going to go as long as it did. I found my fourth wind for the day. I didn't go to bed last night. I stayed up all night writing a book that you can purchase down below. You know, if you just feel like
it. This much energy.
Yeah, it's all because of the coffee, really. But thank you guys for tuning in. I'm sorry we didn't make it to the marketing portion of this show, but the good news is we're going to have Matt back on the show, and we're going to talk just a whole episode about marketing, which is great because Matt is a fan of Russell Brunson, has read a bunch of his books, and I'm sure he just has tons of knowledge to hit us all with, and it will be better and allow you guys to submit questions and just get everything going. So if you guys like this video, please click up here and check out my playlist for my other Reezy Talks live show. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, smash the like button. And if you like the show, but you're super busy like I am and you can't watch videos, you can listen to the videos or to the shows on podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. And I would love to have you as a listener. If you like what you hear, please leave me a 5-star review. If you don't like it, don't bother leaving me a review because that doesn't help. But just show Matt some love. Tell him that you appreciated having him on the show. I appreciated having you on the show today, Matt. It was pretty awesome.
Thanks so much for having me on. And guys, check out his book. That consultation with him would be worth it alone if you take him up on that offer. So check out that book.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And it was super fun hanging out with you not last weekend, but the weekend before.
Yeah, getting that Airbnb in Venice.
Dude, that Airbnb was so fly, bro.
Oh, that was nice.
That was awesome. I think we had 20 people at that after party or something.
It seemed like more than that, but
maybe 30.
There was a perfect Airbnb for it.
Yeah, it was awesome. All right, man, I'm going to go get some sushi or some fajitas. I don't know what I'm going to eat, but it's my choice since it's my birthday. But thank you for coming on tonight, Matt. Appreciate it. And I'll see you on the next episode.
Of course. Have a great rest of your birthday.
All right, man. If you ain't flipping, you slipping. You got to say it.
If you ain't flipping, you slipping.
All right, man. Have a good night. Thank you very much, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Reezy.
Thanks for watching, guys.